Hello everybody! Well, in today's lesson we are going to read the first half of a really brilliant story called The Pudding Like a Knight on the Sea. I like pudding. I wonder if anybody here likes pudding, and you could always comment in Google Classroom to let me know what your favourite kind of pudding is. Well, this story, The Pudding Like a Knight on the Sea, is the first story from a collection, a really good collection of stories, about a boy called Julian Bates and his family. And the first book in the series is called The Julian Stories, and you'll see that Julian's a very interesting character. He's really lovable, but he's not a boy who always does exactly the right thing. So, what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick look at some questions, and they're going to be these questions. So, if you've got a piece of paper, make a note of these questions now. Pause the video, have a look, and then you'll need to listen out for relevant information in the story. So, stop the video and write down these 1, 2, 3, 4 questions, or you can print them out from Google Classroom. So I hope that you've had a chance to write the 4 questions down, because what we're going to do is when the story happens, you're going to listen out in the story and look in the text for answers to these questions, and we'll have to find bits of information from different places in the story. So the first question is, what do we know about Dad so far in the story? And we need to describe Dad in the story. So there are 3 main characters so far. There's Dad and his 2 boys, Julian and Huey. And the first question is to describe Dad. And when we describe somebody, if I just move down here, it means that when we describe somebody, it means, here we have it, it means to say what something or someone is like. And when we describe a person, we can describe what they look like, how tall, how big, the colour of their eyes, their hairstyle. We could say any facts we know about them, their age or their job. And very importantly, we also try to describe their personality. What are they like? And that has got to be based on, well, the text might give us some clues, but also we judge that on what they say and what they do. That's how we know what people are like. Then the next question is another describing one. This one is about Julian, and we need to try and work out, infer, something about his age and his personality. Based on what he does, how he speaks, we're going to infer it, work it out from the clues in the text. The third question is, we're going to read the first half of the story, and I'm going to ask you to summarise the story so far. Now, summarising means when we start off with something quite long with lots and lots of details in it, we summarise it by just writing the short version. But that short version has still got to include the most important things that somebody would need to know in order to be able to understand basically what's going on in the story. What's the story about? So we need to include things like who the main characters are, what they do, where it happens, and basically the most important things. So a summary should be quite short, but it's still got to explain clearly what's going on. And then the last question is for you to predict what you think will happen next. And there'll be little clues in the text which, if you pay attention, will give you some good predictions and give you some good ideas for what's going to happen next. So let's start the story. the pudding like a night on the sea. I'm going to make something special for your mother, my father said. My mother was out shopping. My father was in the kitchen, looking at the pots and the pans and the jars of this and that. What are you going to make? I said. Pudding, he said. My father is a big man with wild black hair. When he laughs, the sun laughs in the window panes. When he thinks, you can almost see his thoughts sitting on all the tables and chairs. When he is angry, me and my little brother Hughie shiver to the bottom of our shoes. What kind of pudding will you make? Hughie said. A wonderful pudding, my father said. It will taste like a whole raft of lemons. It will taste like a night on the sea. Then he took down a knife and sliced 5 lemons in half. He squeezed the first one. Ooh! Juice squirted in my eye. Stand back, he said, and squeezed again. Ooh! The seeds flew out on the floor. Pick up those seeds, Hughie, he said. Hughie took the broom and swept them up. My father cracked some eggs and put the yolks in a pan and the whites in a bowl. He rolled up his sleeves and pushed back his hair and beat up the yolks. Sugar, Julian, he said, and I poured in the sugar. He went on beating. Then he put in lemon juice and cream and set the pan on the stove. The pudding bubbled, and he stirred it fast. Cream splashed on the stove. Wipe that up, Hughie, he said. Hughie did. It was hot by the stove. My father loosened his collar and pushed at his sleeves. The stuff in the pan was getting thicker and thicker. He held the beater up high in the air. Just right, he said, and sniffed in the smell of the pudding. He whipped the egg whites and mixed them into the pudding. The pudding looked softer and lighter than air. Done, he said. He washed all the pots, splashing water on the floor, and wiped the counter so fast his hair made circles around his head. Perfect, he said. Now, I'm going to take a nap. If something important happens, bother me. If nothing important happens, don't bother me. And the pudding is for your mother. Leave the pudding alone. He went to the living room and was asleep in a minute, sitting straight up in his chair. Hughie and I guarded the pudding. Oh, it's a wonderful pudding, Hughie said, with waves on the top, like the ocean, I said. Yes, can you see? I found a picture of a cake with a cream topping, and can you see it? It's almost a little bit like the waves on the ocean. Oh, I wonder how it tastes, Hughie said. Leave the pudding alone, I said. If I just put my finger in, just there, I'll know how it tastes, Hughie said. And he did it. Ah, you did it, I said. How does it taste? It tastes like a whole raft of lemons, he said. It tastes like a night on the sea. You've made a hole in the pudding, I said. But since you did it, I'll have a taste. And it tasted like a whole night of lemons. It tasted like floating at sea. It's such a big pudding, Huey said. It can't hurt to have a little more. Well, since you took more, I'll have more, I said. Oh, that was a bigger lick than I took, Huey said. I'm going to have more again. What? I said. You put in your whole hand, Huey said. Look at the pudding you spilled on the floor. I am going to clean it up, I said, and I took the rag from the sink. That's not really clean, Huey said. It's the best I can do, I said. Look at the pudding, Huey said. It looked now like craters on the moon. We have to smooth this over, I said, so it looks the way it did before. Let's get spoons. And we evened the top of the pudding with spoons. And while we evened it, we ate some more. There isn't much left, I said. Oh, we were supposed to leave the pudding alone, Huey said. We'd better get away from here, I said. We ran into our bedroom and crawled under the bed. After a long time, we heard my father's voice. Oh, come into the kitchen, dear, he said. I have something for you. Oh, why? What is it? My mother said. Out in the kitchen. So what's going to happen? So we've got 4 questions. Remember, listen to the story again. Stop the video. Make notes. You've got to answer these 4 questions. 1. What do we know about Dad so far? We've got to describe him. Big, small, hair, eyes, personality. Then we need to describe Julian. Now we've got to think about what he says and what he does. What kind of a boy is he? What kind of a child? Then the 3rd one, we've got to summarise the story so far. So basically, what happens, who's involved, and what kind of thing is, what's going on. And the 4th question, predict what you think will happen next and how the story might end. Explaining why you think that. Remember, what does the story say about Dad when he is angry? The boys shiver right down into their shoes. So, I hope that you have enjoyed the story. I'll give you a little sneak peek of some of the things that we're going to plan to do. This week we're going to use this story to look again at the rules of speech punctuation, and you're going to imagine writing the conversation between Julian and Dad. We'll write our own story for the ending, and then we'll read the actual story to see what happens. But it should be good fun. So just remember, for today's lesson, you've got 4 questions to answer, and you will need to listen to the video at least one more time and stop it and make notes to answer the questions. Okay, right, hope you've enjoyed it. Looking forward to seeing you all soon. Bye!